Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Stacy, and when you give me the cue, I'll shift the slide. And your mic is on mute, Stacy.
Would you like to go back to the first slide so people who come in a bit later can see? There we go. All right.
Did I
get rid of? Welcome, everyone. Okay, we're at Wade in the Water.
No, that was not right.
I want to begin by saying, do not fear being a co-host in online embodied experiences because perfection is not required. I'm Stacy, and on behalf of the Committee for Whole Health Living, I welcome each of you to today's online experience. It will be an immersive experience to demonstrate real life embodied online discussions. I'd like to share a little bit about our training. The Whole Health Living Committee have engaged in 2 online training programs for hosting discussions online and have adopted the Lenzo-Hulin method, which is the online hosting we use for our college. You notice I'm looking up, I have a teleprompter going above me because the memory's not so good sometimes. We focus on creative learning, back to the presentation. We focus on creative learning opportunities that support students in self-directed and collaborative learning so that they can be part of co-creating knowledge. And they'll create knowledge that will be relevant and meaningful to every participant in that day's discussion. Today we have 5 hosts. We have Deborah Graham-Fernandez, Debbie, and she's our tech host, moving us into breakout rooms and sharing guidelines. We have Buwan, who will help bring us into our 3-dimensional bodies. Can you wave? Oh, there you go. You have your name. All right. Will bring us into our 3-dimensional bodies with a brief meditation. And then toward the end of the hour, Buwan will explain the concept of harvesting. Anna Maria will give you an overview of what to expect in this hour. And then finally, David will talk about ideas to create energizing and generative questions. And then he'll lead us into our breakout rooms. So this morning's topic is creating real life embodied experiences in online discussions. So how do we do this? Well, prior to each event, we gather and collaborate and combine our intellect and our creativity and our good humor to determine a topic and figure out questions that will engage students in a whole, it's easy enough for me to say, a fully embodied experience. Now, for the structure of our meetings, we have monthly cafes on whole health living. We try to maintain some predictability in the structure of the discussion so students are more comfortable when they participate. We start with an introduction to the event that includes a creative way that participants can introduce themselves to each other and bring themselves into the virtual room. For today's discussion, we ask you to look at the slide of 9 sheep. Ah, there they are, gorgeous. You look at these sheep and decide which one most describes how you feel today. In the chat box, put your name and where your feet touch the ground. I'm Stacy in White Plains, for example. And then the number of the sheep you most identify with at this moment and why you identify with that sheep. All right. So we have, how many people do we have participating today?
Looks like about 57.
Okay, so you know what? You can put it in the chat box, but why don't we just go person to person? Because we have 7 participants and that gives us plenty of time.
Stacy, 57. 57.
We have 57 participants?
58 now, yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Chat room,
Yes, please do avail yourselves of the chat box introduce yourself, where your feet touch the ground, and which sheep you identify most with at this moment and why. So go ahead. Sleepy and Buffalo. Welcome, David. Hi, Brett. A 4. Oh, learning new stuff is exciting. That's lovely. Bleeding. Dog got you up too early. Welcome, Mark. Happily hiding away. Forgive me for laughing, but aren't these pictures funny? No matter which one you choose, it brings you joy or amusement.
Stacy, I don't have access to the chat while I'm sharing my screen, so can I just introduce my name is Debbie. I'm in Tarrytown, New York, and I feel like I'm identifying with number 1 because I sort of like I'm being the tech host, but there's still so much I have to learn about tech hosting, that aspect of it. So number 1 really seems kind of with my tongue out, biting down on it.
Well, a lot of people are sleepy today. Maybe it's because it's been so hot. That could be. 6, I like accessories. That's awesome, Claudia. That's great. I too like accessories, but I think I'm feeling like a 9 for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm so happy we have almost 60 people. Welcome to each of you. And because my introduction has gone, I think, pretty well. Perfection is not required. And I'm ready to hand off to Buon, who will take us 61. Terrific, Sophia, thanks. Will lead us into more embodied experience in online discussion. Buon?
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Now let's take a couple minutes to feel our body and make our body, mind, breath, everything in sync. So I would invite you to sit comfortably with your back straight, and then allow yourself to breathe in and breathe out slowly and as deep as possible. Breathing in deep and breathing out deep. Breathing is a wonderful way to connect ourselves in a deeper way, because when we take the time to breathe, we tend to center ourselves. We tend to be more focused and more grounded. Feel the expansion and contraction of your lungs, your ribs, as you breathe in and breathe out. As you breathe in, move your attention inward, your focus. And as you breathe out, move your attention outward. Remain aware of what is happening as you breathe in and breathe out. Be available to this moment. Remain aware of your body, your breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Now slowly open your eyes. And I think we are now ready to move on to the next step.
I am going to share another slide. I find when I do this right, when I really follow the meditation, I land. I get more grounded, I land, and it's easier to be more present. And we just want to take a minute or two to go over, these are guidelines that we received from a couple of places, the people who developed the World Cafe community, and I put the link for that somewhere here. It's theworldcafe.com. They've started doing a lot of online things with another organization you can see at the bottom here, We Dialogue. And Amy at WeDialogue.com. There are etiquette for having World Cafe type conversations, which is what we find is a really good way to get people present and make the work relevant for people in an online experience. And then there are also things to really think about specifically when you're doing this online. So I have them up here, but I am going to focus. We ask everyone every time we do a group, whether it's a class, an event, training, we ask if possible, keep your camera on. It's good to know who we're in the room with. It's good to be able to make eye contact and have that connection. We also ask people to lean in, meaning really that focusing in an online platform takes just a little bit more intention and even practice. Really listening to understand what people are saying. When it's online, it really means doing whatever you possibly can to refrain from multitasking. I know that's a really hard thing to do on the computer. We also encourage people, we're going to break you out as we go forward. You'll know more about what to expect as we move forward in this training. But when you are talking to other people, listen for patterns. Listen for patterns that come up in the conversation. Really listen to understand. Keep your mic muted, as Jamie had shared, which in an odd way creates almost like a talking stick, an online version of it. You don't actually have to pass anything around to know I'm holding it. I talk, I'm the one with my mic off. That's kind of one of the positive things I think about the online environment for group learning, group working. We also, just so you know, I don't think this is an issue today, but in thinking about real bodies in this room and being together, think about the topic you're teaching on. I'm in human services, I'm a social worker. If I'm doing a training or teaching a class on trauma, it's different than in person. I might not pick up the subtle cues if someone's getting triggered, if something's uncomfortable. So I will think ahead. If something's uncomfortable, this is a place you can reach out if you need an extra resource, or reach out to me, or whatever you think is the right thing in that moment. We sometimes give instructions on what to do if an issue comes up in a breakout room. But I will say, you'll find we're going to do random groups, and there are 55 people, and we're going to do random groups. We will not be in every group because the ideal size for a chat group is 3 to 5. So we're going to break you into groups of 4. So we really trust the group. So if it's a topic or a group that we think might need assistance, we'll give ideas on what to do if something uncomfortable comes up in your chat room. But generally speaking, we hope that we give clear enough instructions that when people break out into their breakout rooms, there's a leader in every chair. And we trust the group to be able to stay on task and do the work that they need to do. So, in the spirit of following that, I'm going to turn my mic over to Anna Maria, who's going to let you know what to expect, what the sort of directives are for you. And then hopefully that will demonstrate how we can be embodied, have this experience, and be clear and be able to trust everyone in the room. So Anna Maria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Maria Ross, and I am in the Utica area of central New York in a little village called Clinton. I will cover some of what to expect in the remainder of this hour. Debbie talked about ambience, introductions, guidelines, and the notion of embodiment. And the next step is for you to get assigned to a breakout room for about 20 minutes. But first, I want to give a quick overview of what to expect in the breakout room. One of the most important things we have learned about online virtual events and presentations is it's how important it is to give a sense of agency to everyone who participates and engage them as much as possible right away. And that it goes a long way towards alleviating anxiety. So people want to know what to expect. In your breakout room, you will be with 3 to 5 members, hopefully not too many more than that. You can reintroduce yourselves briefly, share your name, where you are, where your feet are touching the ground, to put that in a more poetic and playful way. We think that connections among learners and participants are really important, and that these are also opportunities for networking and making friends and covering common ground across vast distances. Then the third thing is to agree who will be the scribe, and someone in your group can volunteer or be designated by the group. And take some notes on key themes, patterns that arise, perhaps deeper questions that come up. And the scribe will report in the chat box. And when we return to the main room, time permitting, the scribe or someone else in the group can also share some of the insights from the group discussion. Another reminder is to have a timekeeper, because it's easy to lose track of time, and sometimes there's one person who has a lot to share and other people who are very quiet and don't want to share as much, which is absolutely fine. But the timekeeper can remind everyone how much time is left, and hopefully encourage everyone to take at least a few minutes each to share and discuss, only to their comfort level. There is no one way or right way to have this kind of virtual discussion. And so we ask you to work together as a small group to find, your comfort level and delve into the question. Some people just naturally emerge as a leader. Other people just prefer to listen more than talk. And, as long as you feel like you have the opportunity to be heard and think of things in new ways. Our goal is to have this be kind of a transformative experience where you at least transform some of your ideas with some new flavors. So there is one round of breakout room discussion in this event. We often have 2 or sometimes even 3, but we have longer events that we host on a regular basis. So when Debbie opens the rooms, you will be prompted to join a specific room. Depending on your software, you may be placed in a certain room automatically, but if not, there will be something popping up on your screen that asks you to click yes or to agree to join a room. So please say yes. It's not Russian hackers, it's us. So other than the roles of timekeeper and scribe, there's no assigned leader. So the circle way philosophy, which Debbie hinted at, and also Stacy mentioned, that we embrace this idea that everyone is equally, engaged and equally a participant. Not necessarily putting pressure on people to speak up, but certainly making everyone who feels like a natural chatterbox or a leader in conversation. And I think many of us in an academic setting tend to be that kind of person who wants to fill an empty space, to just kind of try to be somewhat brief and allow for a little silence and encourage other people to also speak up. I'm almost done. So you will automatically see a 60-second warning when Debbie closes the rooms. In this case, you will automatically be returned to the main room after 60-second warnings, but you don't need to exit prematurely, but you can. You could take the 60 seconds to add one last thought or say goodbye. And when you do get put back into the main room, sometimes it does feel sort of sudden. And if you're in the waiting room, you see people popping up like mushrooms after a good rain. And you feel like you're thrust through cyberspace. There you are, back in the main room. But one of the team, will be in the main room the entire time to make sure that if someone accidentally gets bounced off or shows up late or has some kind of tech trouble, that they get some support, and we can try to the main host who stays in the main room can put them back into one of the rooms. The host can also move people from room to room. Sometimes we've had husband and wife end up in the same room and they're like, how about we'd like to talk to other people for a change, so you can communicate. The main host can communicate to the chat rooms, to the separate rooms. So that's helpful. And one or several of us will be in the main room and return you to the breakout room when the 20-minute session is over. So yes, in more typical sessions that we sometimes host events that are an hour and a half or 2 hours long, and it seems like a long time, but it actually goes by pretty fast and it can be a whole lot of fun. And so thank you for paying attention. And next, David is going to add a few more things.
Thank you, Anna Maria. I am David Queso, and my feet hit the ground in Albany, New York. And perhaps one of the more important elements of planning and structuring one of these events is considering energy and engagement. A couple of things to consider is a real basic one for everybody, I think, and that is an open-ended question. And then it's how genuine of an answer you're going to get from that kind of a question. So we don't want to ask questions which people can respond to, which don't really add depth to the dialogue. So we want to have something which is open-ended and that people will be genuinely interested and curious about answers from each other. So that's a real important approach that we have found to begin with. The questions are critical. So for the kind of work that we're proposing, we always ask that genuine question and ask a question that can have a variety of answers. And as we like to say, trust the group, that we can have a conversation and learn together because, as one of the co-hosts, there's always topics. And I think a lot of us can probably identify with this, that there's always a lot of information that comes out, which is new to us, certainly new to me. And this kind of learning can be open and curious and not predetermined, but just to allow yourself to trust the group. And so a couple of things to consider. Again, keep the questions open-ended. Monosyllabic answers cannot generate energy and enthusiasm for learning and discovery. Be certain that questions you are asking are relevant to the audience. Working with adults and post-traditional learners at SUNY Empire State College, we've learned that the best way to support student success is to keep our curricula immediately meaningful and purposeful to the students. So that means you have to kind of be in touch with what's going on with them, right? The question we pose to you that we hope is energizing is this, and I know some of you have already begun asking, what's the question in the chat? So here we go. So the question that we have for you to consider within your breakout rooms is, what have been the challenges, what have been the ethical dilemmas, and or the unexpected opportunities that have surfaced for you during the pandemic as classes, meetings, and events have moved online? Keep an eye out for broadcasts from us Debbie will be opening the breakouts momentarily. And again, we want you to reintroduce yourselves, choose a scribe, a timekeeper, and contribute from your experience and listen to understand and enjoy the dialogue. And we'll go into our breakouts.
So actually, Jamie is going to do the breakout for me. And off we go.
If you'd like to join the breakout rooms, you should see an invitation to join one of the breakout rooms. If you don't, you can stay in here with me. It's totally fine.
We cut off somebody in the middle of our session.
It's okay.
So I think if we are all back, we're going to turn over to, I want to say Buwan, but I started
Yes.
paying attention and lost my page. Yes, Buwan, you got the floor.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you had a good conversation in a smaller groups. So the idea of harvesting is that we build into every session or event. This is an opportunity to recap and encourage each participant to reflect on his or her own takeaway. Some people call this a harvest because based on the seeds we have sown, what can you take and use? This can prep participants to apply some of what they have learned and in situations where these meetings are to address a problem. Harvesting can be a way to document what was discussed and plan for moving forward. So for today, based on your conversation, what might you hold on to in terms of online learning as we reintegrate back to more face-to-face gatherings? So we'd like to ask each group host to put 2 to 3 key themes that came out from your conversation. Everyone, please feel to scribe in the chat room. And while people are using the chat room, we invite you also to share. If you'd like, you can turn on your microphone and share. It looks like Alexandra is ready to share. No, okay.
I'll share.
All right, Paula.
Hi, my name is Paula, and there are only 3 of us in our group, but I think we all agreed that there were a lot of great things that came out of being forced online. The discovery of a lot of new tools, the accessibility for many people. You didn't have to drive, you were able to get on. So I think in at least a couple of our cases, we definitely will continue offering courses that are online. For me, I will do a lot more flipped classroom type strategies to be able to use the synchronous time that I do have with them on Zoom in more discussion, more group simulation, things like that. So.
Okay, thank you. Stacy just posted from her group that pandemic, illness, and other challenges have allowed students to offer empathy to one another, Voice thread encourages communication, especially when sharing one's own work and experiences. VT allows a less threatening way for students to engage with one another. Thank you. Claudia shared the physical environment of a classroom and the structure of moving to a learning space is not easily replaced. Absolutely. I'm having a hard time catching up because it's moving really fast. And everyone can read in the chat room. I'll read Susan Werner's. Key takeaways: teaching mindfulness before the pandemic, which came in very handy during the pandemic. Teams coming together during a crisis, even though the number of faculty that needed support was overwhelming. We as IDs and faculty survived it. Mark Fried, evaluate tools used online for the value they have in face-to-face traditional settings. Use synchronous communication to complement face-to-face encounters. Brayton, I was the scribe for Chris, Marcy's, Deborah, and Annette. We all noticed that we really missed the impromptu hallway conversation. We all loved the humanizing on seeing people in the context of their own physical spaces. We also liked the archiver of the chats etc. associated with online meetings that is stick around. That's really helpful. And sometimes, is there anyone who would like to share any final thoughts or comments? David Queso. Challenges: ensuring balance of participation, opportunities, hiring just before the pandemic, face-to-face community. Office hours support were available online, allowing for more intensive contact, high flex environments. Absolutely. Debbie, I would add, we had a great conversation about the risks and benefits. Need to be attuned to what your students see in your home and what they see when you share your screen. Yes. JC, challenges we noted included students' inability to stay online, software, hardware, and internet connectivity issues. Students had difficulties online and many just gave up, and while info was made available, many faculty experienced similar issues with their students. Many students were affected by illness in their families as well during the pandemic. Okay, I think while you continue to share your information, we are also running sort of time. So I would like to move this forward and I will pass this to, let's see who is the next. Is this Debbie?
This is Q&A. I think we're up to Q&A now. So in the spirit of a leader in every chair, you have 5 hosts. You can ask any of us a specific question about a section we covered, or any questions you have that any of us could jump in and answer. But this is time for Q&A. And you can either raise your hand, or you can say in the chat, or you can jump right in. You can say in the chat you want to ask a question. I'm looking in the chat. I actually found that so interesting, and hearing that as a pattern among our whole among the things that we all said came out of our discussions. This idea of that some things are wonderful about this and some things are really, concerning. The risks and the benefits, things we have to be attuned to that we didn't before, but also this way that we can connect that we couldn't before.
I'll throw out one of the questions that came up. One of the comments that came up, and that was, we ran out of time. And that's definitely something that we experience with these as well. And Deb, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that or not, but it was a point that was brought up of concern. And part of it too is that we typically do multiple breakouts. And so that gives people more of an opportunity to engage as well. So this was abbreviated a little bit because of the time frame of this workshop that we're doing. more so than anything, we wanted to give you a flavor of it. So we wanted you to experience the important question, but also to experience the format that we're working with.
So when you're saying the question was, I didn't follow the question about running out of time.
Somebody just stated that they ran out of time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, I have to admit that happens to me a lot in face-to-face classes too. But but yeah, the breakout rooms, you have no control. You can't extend it. You're pulling people back. So I would say to that comment, we've received that comment. We used to do 15-minute, we moved it to 20-minute. I think when you have a group that's doing well and really engaging, it's hard to know how much time would at some point be too much time.
And you can't seem to overemphasize the importance within the guidelines as we're starting of making sure that everyone has an opportunity to talk, right? So you can say that till you're blue in the face, and unless you're actually in the groups and monitoring people's engagement, you're going to lose that kind of control as you do in a face-to-face environment, right? So, you know, unless you're circling around with every single group and pushing people along, and that is even complicated in a face-to-face group because you don't know what every single group is doing until you get there, really.
I'm looking at a comment that Susan made. As someone coming from a privileged position, it was eye-opening to see the hidden equity issues that surfaced when we were all separated online. Susan, do you want to say more about that? Do you mean that in general, in terms of the equity issues overall, or something that came up today, or?
No, I was meaning just in general, that when we were all out there and I work at a community college. So, you know, the issues that students who go to community college may be a bit different, or maybe very much the same as what other students at other colleges experience. But the things that were eye-opening for me were the things that it was like, oh yeah, not everybody has the same internet access. And it wasn't just about someone who couldn't pay for it. It was about location as well. So geographically, someone may be in a very rural area, and usually they would drive into campus. But when they were home working, if they had to work on satellite or from a cell phone or anything like that, that presented a big problem for them. So urban, rural, it didn't matter whether you had money to pay for big time internet or not. Those issues came to the fore.
Yeah.
So Deb, did you have any final thoughts before we close? Or in closing?
I think actually I would say that that issue of equity came up in so many ways when, for us, I think when we suddenly went fully online and virtual as well. I had a student who couldn't stay a full 2 hours because her phone couldn't handle it. There was no computer. I know our school tried to help students quickly get access laptops and stuff, but yeah, the technology, I will say, first of all, I just want to thank this group. I had a wonderful time in the group that I was in. It was a wonderful group of 4. And I think I would just end, I think my takeaway from this, there's such important stuff to think about in terms of the risks and benefits. You know, on a personal note, I've got probably 80 family members of separate families in Mexico. First time in 27 years, we did a party thing. I'm blanking out, but we did something with each family at Christmas for the 12 days before. Never would have thought of that if not for this pandemic. And now it's like, oh, we can never not do that again and connect. But on the other hand, there are things online. It's tricky. You're more vulnerable. I realize now I have a picture from my wedding. I didn't realize when I moved things around that that's there. You know, that may be okay for a class. I also have a private practice, not so appropriate. So just the risks and the benefits. It's almost like a whole new area of study and learning that we can all benefit by focusing in on. But I guess on that note, I thank you all, and I thank my group that co-hosted with me. And thank you so much, Jamie, for answering all of our questions up to this and helping us out with this.
And thank you to all of you for presenting today. I hope the audience got a lot out of this session. We appreciate the conversation and the engagement from everyone. We're going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'm going to stop recording.